In the 1960s, the small town of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, was just like any other small town in America. People knew their neighbors, kids played in the streets, and everyone felt safe. But that changed one cold November evening in 1966. It started with a couple driving down a dark country road near an old abandoned factory. They were talking about the weather and plans for the weekend when suddenly, the woman screamed. Up ahead, standing in the middle of the road, was a creature unlike anything they had ever seen. It was over 7 feet tall with a wingspan nearly as wide as the road. Its body was gray, and its eyes glowed a bright, menacing red. The creature just stood there, staring at them. The man slammed on the brakes, but before they could react further, it spread its wings and took off into the sky. They could barely breathe as they watched it disappear into the night. Word spread quickly in Point Pleasant. More and more people began to report sightings of the creature, which they called the Mothman. Some saw it flying over the town. Others heard strange, unearthly noises at night. One woman said she woke up to see it peering into her bedroom window with those awful red eyes. People were terrified, but no one knew what to do. The police were skeptical, thinking it was just a large bird or a prank. But then things started to get even stranger. Animals went missing, and pets were found mutilated. People reported feeling a sense of dread and unease that they couldn't explain. The fear reached its peak on December 15, 1967. It was a chilly winter afternoon, and the Silver Bridge, which connected Point Pleasant to Ohio, was packed with cars. Without warning, the bridge collapsed, sending dozens of vehicles into the icy waters of the Ohio River. 46 people lost their lives that day. In the aftermath, some claimed to have seen the Mothman near the bridge just before it fell. They believed it was a warning, a harbinger of the disaster to come. Others thought the creature had caused the collapse itself. The town was in shock, grief-stricken, and searching for answers. Over time, the sightings of the Mothman dwindled, but the legend never faded. People speculated about what the creature was and why it appeared. Some said it was an alien, others a supernatural being, and some thought it was just a large, misidentified bird. Years passed, but the story of the Mothman continued to haunt Point Pleasant. New generations heard the tales, and the old fears stirred whenever a strange noise echoed through the night or a shadow moved in the corner of their vision. To this day, the Mothman remains a mystery. Was it truly a warning of impending doom, a guardian angel in a terrifying form, or simply a figment of collective imagination sparked by fear and tragedy? No one knows for sure. But if you ever find yourself in Point Pleasant, be careful where you look and listen closely to the whispers of the past. For the Mothman might just be watching you with those glowing red eyes. In 1959, 9 experienced hikers embarked on an expedition into the remote Ural Mountains of Russia. Led by Igor Dyatlov, the group was full of seasoned adventurers ready to conquer the snowy wilderness. They were excited and prepared for the harsh conditions, but what awaited them in the mountains was beyond anyone's imagination. The hikers set off on their journey in late January. They were well-equipped and in high spirits. For days, they trekked through deep snow and climbed steep slopes, documenting their progress with journals and photographs. Their goal was to reach a mountain called Otorten, but they never made it. When the group failed to return as scheduled, a search party was sent out. What they found was baffling and terrifying. The hiker's tent was discovered on a slope called Kolet or Dead Mountain, torn open from the inside. It seemed as though the hikers had slashed their way out in a frantic hurry. Their footprints, barefoot and scattered, led away from the tent into the forest. As the searchers followed the tracks, they began to find the bodies. The first 2 were found near the edge of the forest, lying by a makeshift fire. They were dressed only in their underwear, despite the freezing temperatures. Further into the woods, 3 more bodies were found, appearing as if they were trying to return to the tent. It was a puzzling scene, but the mystery deepened when the last 4 bodies were discovered in a ravine months later. These hikers had severe injuries, broken ribs, crushed skulls, but strangely, there were no external wounds. It was as if they had been subjected to an immense force. The investigators were stumped. There were no signs of an avalanche, and the injuries did not match any known animal attack. Theories began to emerge. Some suggested it was a secret military test gone wrong. and the hikers were unfortunate victims of a missile or bomb. Others believed it was the work of a Yeti or an unknown creature. UFO enthusiasts claimed the group had encountered extraterrestrials. The official investigation concluded that an unknown compelling force had caused the deaths, but this vague explanation did little to satisfy those looking for answers. Theories continued to swirl, each more outlandish than the last. In recent years, some researchers proposed that a rare type of avalanche, called a slab avalanche, might have caused the initial panic. Others suggested infrasound waves from the wind could have induced extreme fear and disorientation. Yet, none of these theories fully explain the peculiar details of the case. The Dyatlov Pass incident, as it came to be known, remains one of the most enduring mysteries of the 20th century. The hikers, with their experience and preparation, should have been able to survive. But something out there, in the cold, dark night of the Ural Mountains, led them to a terrifying and tragic end. To this day, the pass where they died bears the name of their leader, Igor Dyatlov, and those who venture into the area often feel a sense of unease, as if the mountain itself remembers the horror that took place. The true cause of the hikers' deaths may never be known, leaving us to wonder what really happened on that fateful night in 1959. In 1974, the quiet town of Amityville, New York, was shaken by a horrifying crime. Ronald DeFeo Jr. brutally murdered 6 members of his own family in their home on Ocean Avenue. His parents and 4 siblings were found shot to death in their beds. Ronald claimed he heard voices urging him to commit the murders, but his story changed several times, leaving people to wonder what truly happened in that house. A year later, the Lutz family moved into the same house. George and Kathy Lutz, along with their 3 children, were aware of the house's grim history but decided to make it their home. They moved in on December 18, 1975, hoping to start a new chapter in their lives. What they didn't know was that their experience would become the stuff of nightmares. From the very first night, strange things began to happen. The Lutzes reported cold spots throughout the house, areas where the temperature would suddenly drop for no reason. They noticed foul, inexplicable odors wafting through the rooms, smells that no amount of cleaning could get rid of. Doors would slam shut on their own, and strange noises echoed through the halls at all hours. George Lutz began waking up at exactly 3:15 a.m. every night, the same time Ronald DeFeo Jr. had carried out the murders. He felt a presence in the house, something dark and malevolent. He even started to take on some of DeFeo's personality traits, becoming irritable and distant. Kathy Lutz experienced physical attacks. She would wake up with strange welts and bruises on her body, with no memory of how they got there. One night, she felt a cold, unseen hand touch her. The children were also terrified, claiming to see ghostly figures and hear disembodied voices. The family priest, Father Mancuso, tried to bless the house, but he too was affected. As he sprinkled holy water and prayed, he heard a deep, menacing voice telling him to get out. He fell ill shortly after and advised the Lutz family to leave the house immediately. Desperate and terrified, the Lutzes fled the house after just 28 days. They left all their belongings behind, never to return. Their story was quickly picked up by the media, and the house on Ocean Avenue became infamous. Books and movies were made about their ordeal, most notably the Amityville Horror, which captivated and terrified audiences worldwide. However, not everyone believed the Lutz family's story. Skeptics argued that the events were exaggerated or entirely fabricated to make money. They pointed out inconsistencies in the family's accounts and suggested they had concocted the tale after learning about the house's history. Despite the doubts, the legend of the Amityville Horror persisted. Paranormal investigators visited the house, hoping to find evidence of the supernatural. Some claimed to feel a sinister presence, while others dismissed the stories as mere fiction. The house on Ocean Avenue still stands, a silent witness to the tragedy and terror that unfolded within its walls. It has changed owners several times, and each new resident brings their own beliefs and fears. But the question remains, was the Lutz family's experience a genuine haunting or an elaborate hoax? The truth may never be known, but the story of the Amityville Horror continues to haunt those who hear it, a chilling reminder of the thin veil between the known and the unknown.